What's a common myth about your profession that you'd like to debunk? That being your own boss/owning your small business means you have more freedom. Bro, if it's a one-person show, or even if you have a small team, the scope of your responsibility is massive. I'm seriously considering getting out and just going to work for someone else for a change. At least then I could put my work down at the end of my shift. My dad spent his entire life working his ass off and undercharging as a mechanic just because he liked being his own boss. Well, probably not just because. Anyway, when he was dying he told my brother he regretted working so much and wished he'd spent more time doing the things he loved. It really rocked my brother's world because he had a similar work ethic to my dad. He ended up closing the shop, father-son business. I went in a completely unrelated direction so it never affected me, and working at someone else's. Not only was he bringing home more money at the end of the day, but he worked less hours. Obviously, it doesn't always work out like that, but it's certainly a consideration. I guess maybe my point is, while not always the case, pride can get in the way of making choices that we really ought to have. But I really want to emphasize how everyone's situation is different. I don't want to convince anyone to close up shop when I know nothing of their situation. My dad did something similar. He owned his own business for his entire life, worked tons of hours, was always in pain from being on his feet all the time and rarely got to take vacations or have hobbies outside of work. He didn't retire till he was 70 because he couldn't find a buyer for his business. He's now almost 74. He and my mom are trying to sell the house so they can finally move to a warmer state and enjoy life, something they should have done 10 years ago. My husband is a mechanic and we had an opportunity to buy a small shop. I noped out right away, but it took a couple hours for husband to really absorb just how much it would take away from us. Bye-bye vacations, bye-bye a paycheck being just handed to you, bye-bye letting the boss deal with warranties and bad parts, bye-bye being able to go home on Friday and not think about work for a whole 2 days. Some families still think we're dumb for not buying. Software developer, I can fix your computer, but that's unrelated to my job. Granny wants you to go fix her microwave. It's got a computer in it, she says. Hey, you, young person thinking of going to culinary school. You're not going to be the next Gordon Ramsay or Bobby Flay. You're going to work incredibly long hours for average pay, never have a Saturday off, get burns and work in a crazy, fast-paced environment. You'll experience working back-to-back double shifts and getting called on your off day. Think of how many celebrity chefs there are, now think of how many restaurants exist. You'll be a chef, sous chef or line cook. That's it, and you may like it. But it's hard work. You do get to work with some of the most fun people you'll ever meet, many of them potentially psychotic, but in a good way. You'll get mad knife skills, your hands will be like oven mitts and you can cook everything. You'll be able to touch a steak or fish and tell if it's cooked. You may do drugs and have sex in a walk-in cooler, but that's optional. You'll scream at people, then a few hours later get drunk with them. All for crappy pay while you watch the servers make a few hundred more in tips. But the knife skills, hoo boy, you'll be a samurai. I absolutely love cooking. No fing chance I'd ever try to work in the restaurant industry. And culinary school is a major waste. When I was in college I worked in kitchens. I used the experience from the first kitchen to get a job in the other one where I was working alongside guys who spent money on culinary school. They got paid about the same amount I was while I was taking classes for a different line of work entirely. Ditto, I wouldn't last a single shift. Scientist, there is literally nothing that we don't want you to know. We love talking about our data. Some sort of massive conspiracy wouldn't last a 5-minute elevator ride with a stranger. Vaccines, evolution, climate change, the cure for cancer. Do you know how bloody famous we'd be if we could demonstrate a fact that ran against the current narrative? If only there wasn't NDAs. Edit, you all are aware that I'm not talking about conspiracy nonsense being real cause of NDAs, right? I'm saying that I can't talk about my work as much as I want 'cause I can, and will, get fired for it, and I kind of like not living under a bridge. Even with an NDA, I promise you at least one scientist with a conscience would make it known. Legal recourse doesn't prevent everything, and definitely no criminal conviction. Violating an NDA wouldn't even result in conviction, it just means you can get sued in civil court. No way scientists are gonna keep quiet, lol. NDA can't prevent you from disclosing evidence of a crime. Security guard. We're not power-hungry cop wannabes. Most of us do the bare minimum to keep our job. If we're giving you a hard time about something, it's because that thing is something our client watches closely. Most of us just want to get our interaction with you done as soon as we can so we can get back to goofing off. Except for the new hires that show up with plate carriers. They're wannabes, but they don't tend to last long. Hell, I've worked government armed sites where I was basically just a fire alarm with a polo and a gun. My old work hired a security guard who literally did the bare minimum. He was paid just for show. He wasn't actually allowed to touch anyone who showed aggression. His job was to intimidate and ask people to leave or call the cops, lol. Something any of us can do. What a waste of money. Please like and subscribe for more daily content.